topic. All right. So today, in this Lunch and Learn, it's going to be something that's a very important topic to all organizations out there, and we're going to be focusing on cybersecurity. But just wanted to start off with the topic today is the top 5 cybersecurity best practices all businesses need to know and implement now. Don't let hackers and cyber criminals win. So the agenda for today, I want to give you a little bit of a background on ILER Networking and Computing, what today's top cybersecurity risks are, what these best practices are for mitigating the risks, how we can help our clients, and then we open it up for question and answers. Now, you'll see a button there that says questions. Don't wait for the question and answer session to ask the questions. If something pops up in the middle of the presentation, please go up there, type in the question, and then when we get to the Q&A session, I'm going to go through and read those questions and then answer them as well. After that, we've got some promotions specific for you that are attending. And then we've got that all-important giveaway. We're giving away 4 club seats to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and these are mid-court seats, about an $800 value. So one of you lucky attendees will be able to go watch the Cavs here later this month. So to start with, ILER Networking and Computing, we're a managed services and security provider. And this is our 30th year in business. We started in 1994 with our headquarters are in Sheffield Village, Ohio, but we have 2 other locations in Iowa and South Carolina. And we are looking to expand into at least 3 other states in the next few years. And so there are a couple of different things we do as a managed services and security provider. One, we co-manage IT assets, and so that's when we assist companies that even have an IT department, but we come in and help with the heavier lifting items. So if there are server migrations or the cybersecurity solutions that we need to provide, we will help that team with those items. We also help with hardware procurement, and we can be a vendor liaison as well. For smaller companies that don't have an IT department, we'll do a fully managed service, and that's where we are the IT department. So we take care of the day-to-day needs, make sure everything is running optimally so those businesses can focus on running their business. One of the recent awards that we were notified we're finalists of last month is called the MSP Titans of the Industry Award. And again, MSP stands for Managed Services Provider. So it's the term for the industry that we are in. And this is a nationwide competition, and we are one of 8 finalists, and it's going to be out in Beverly Hills. There'll be a red carpet gala with Jay Leno and Magic Johnson are going to be our MCs for that. So we do hope we win, but even just being one of 8 nationwide finalists for there, it's a great honor for that. But on to the topic at hand there, today's top cybersecurity risks. So as we go forward, the cybersecurity landscape keeps changing, and our priority is keeping you secure. So we're hoping just to educate you to make sure you're doing these key best practices in your business to make sure that you're not one of these stats. To start with, let's talk about some popular cybersecurity misconceptions. So a lot of small businesses think that their business is too small and unimportant to be a target. The majority of attacks do not happen because you're being targeted. They have scripts that are out there that run and just scour the internet looking for vulnerable systems, but there's also then bait out there, and someone's going to click on either an attachment that's been infiltrated with malware, or going to a website and they've been phished and entering information like that. Another misconception is antivirus software protects the business and keeps it safe. While that is an important tool, and that's what we focused on maybe 15 years ago, anymore, we still need to keep a good enterprise antivirus there on computers, but it is not sufficient alone to keep your company and your data safe. Cybersecurity is too expensive and not cost effective. Cybersecurity, while it does add a little bit of a cost, but today, if the comparison to what you could run into if you don't have the proper measures and these steps in place, those costs are going to be exponentially higher than, it goes back to the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. The IT department is responsible for cybersecurity. While they do play a hand in it, it's everyone's job to make sure that they don't implement or click on something wrong or open that wrong email. Cyber breaches are covered by general liability insurance. Those used to be Anymore, most insurance companies require you to have a cyber liability rider that goes along with your general liability insurance. So we would recommend you contact your insurance agent and ask those details. Just don't assume that you're going to be covered by general liability insurance. So there was this topic that Ford magazines did. It's called the Year of the Mega Data Breach. So in a single year, cyber attacks resulted in 1 billion records compromised, financial losses of over 400 billion. So obviously this is a huge issue, and this is obviously worldwide. But the head of the largest insurer, which is Lloyd's of London, said cybersecurity is the biggest, most systematic risk that he has seen in his 42 years of insurance. So I don't think this is a surprise to any of you, and it kind of sounds like this could happen today. However, this was said back in 2014, so 10 years ago, and a lot has happened since then, and then these bad actors have gotten a lot more sophisticated, and their tools are a lot more sophisticated as well. So let's talk about the top risks. The top one out there is ransomware attacks. Ransomware continues to be one of the most significant threats in the cybersecurity landscape. So last year in 2023, 66% of organizations were hit by ransomware. The average cost of a ransomware attack was $5.13 million. This is the average, which is up 13% from the previous year. So these attacks can lead to operational disruption, financial losses, and reputational damage. And ransomware tactics are also evolving, with more companies adopting a policy to pay ransom, increasing the financial burden on organizations. As I go through these stats, I'm going to list what the sources are there. If you have any questions about these, feel free to ask those in the questions and answer section, or you'll have our contact information at the end. Feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to answer those questions for you. Talking about ransomware, some places here that close to home that hit. Cleveland was shut down in June of this year for 10 days due to a ransomware attack. You just imagine not just the impact of trying to clear up the ransomware, but just the loss of operational efficiency for 10 days that those systems were down. In Columbus then in July, they had another attack. This one technically wasn't ransomware because the bad actors did not ask for a ransom. What they did is they stole 3 terabytes worth of information and released that on the dark web. And then CDK Global, you may have heard of this as well. You may not know who CDK is, but they are one of the top automotive software companies that are global worldwide. And so 80% of the auto industry here in the United States, automobile dealers, use this software. When they got hit with ransomware, that crippled these auto dealerships, and they were not able to sell cars, bring in new cars. Basically, it halted all their operations. They said this costed around $1 billion in all the different impacts and just lost revenue. CDK Global, in order to get things back up and running, ended up caving and paid a $25 million ransom in order to get their systems back online. And the issue with this then is 80% of all organizations that pay that ransom following a ransomware attack will experience a repeat attack, and many times by that same threat actor. And this repeat targeting occurs because attackers recognize that the organization has a history of paying, making it a more attractive target for future exploitation. A lot of times they'll leave a back door in there. So unless you're actually cleaning systems, restoring from a backup that you know is clean, you are at risk for a repeat attack. And those repeat attacks most of the time will cost you more. We'll talk again later on about how to protect yourself from these types of things. And so this also highlights why paying the ransom often exacerbates the problem and emphasizes the importance of stronger prevention rather than paying the attackers. All right, the number 2 top risk is phishing and social engineering. So phishing remains the most common attack vector, contributing 40% of breaches. So phishing attacks are when someone sends an email out pretending to be somebody else, whether it's a vendor that you do business with or even a coworker. The average cost of a phishing breach reaching $4.9 million. Attackers that are doing this use sophisticated tactics, and AI is becoming more prevalent in these to personalize phishing emails, making them more convincing and increasing the chances of success. The next is cloud vulnerabilities. Most of us are using cloud services, whether you realize that or not. If you're using Microsoft 365 or Google for your email, you're using a cloud services. When you're contacting your bank and checking your online account through a web browser, that's a cloud service as well. So as businesses increasingly adopt cloud services, cloud vulnerabilities are becoming a critical concern. There are misconfigurations, insecure APIs. APIs are application program interfaces. So when you do B2B transactions with another vendor, those use APIs to transfer this data. And then account hijacking are some of the common risks in the cloud environment. Insecure cloud setups have led to data breaches, and the average cost of a cloud-based breach is significantly higher when security patches are not applied properly. So 77% of organizations lack adequate cloud security measures, which elevates the risk. And they're the sources for these stats. I'll leave them there just for another second. All right, number 4 for the top risk is supply chain and third-party risks. So supply chain is going to be your vendors that you deal with. These third-party vulnerabilities present an increasing risk as organizations rely on external vendors and third parties for critical services. So 95% increase in third-party risk assessments just highlights the importance to recognize what this threat is going to be. Attackers often exploit weaker security and vendor systems to gain access to larger organizations, leading to data breaches and operational disruptions. For example, here in Cleveland, one of the humongous organizations here that we're thrilled to have local is Cleveland Clinic, and they have an excellent IT department and a huge IT budget to make sure they're secure. However, they do business with a lot of small businesses, and more likely, if they do get some type of vulnerability in a large organization like Cleveland Clinic, it would come through one of their smaller organization vendors and through the supply chain risk. So that is very real, and if something to be concerned about for the vendors that you interact with. The last top risk we're going to talk about today is the abuse of valid credentials. So stolen or compromised credentials were involved in 44.7% of all breaches in 2023. Cyber criminals use these credentials to gain unauthorized access to networks, often moving laterally to compromise critical systems. And this trend is particularly concerning in industries that handle sensitive information such as healthcare and finance. If you go to the dark web, you can put in your email address for both your work and personal, and that's one of the services we can do for you as well. We can pull back all the different credentials for you that are already out there on the dark web. And this is one of the important ways why you don't want to reuse credentials from across multiple systems, because if one system is compromised and you're sharing those credentials, then you're putting all the other systems that use that same credentials for that. All right, and the forecast is even getting worse for this. So this was the forecast started back in November of 2022. And so they're saying for 2024, it's a $14.57 trillion impact based on cybercrime. But look at that, next year it's going up to 17.65 trillion, and in 2027 all the way up to 23.82 trillion. So if you remember the numbers back in 2014 and Lloyd's of London, we were talking about 400 billion. And so you can just see over the years how this number is increasing, and it's staggering. So it's important to make sure that you are doing your due diligence to make sure you're protecting your systems. So this is kind of the solutions, top 5 best practices for mitigating the risk. And I say mitigating the risk because unfortunately, nothing is going to protect you 100%. If there's an organization that has enough money and effort, then they are going to be able to get into your data. But that is going to be very rare as long as you're taking these due steps and the due diligence to protect your systems and your data. So who is your biggest cybersecurity threat? It's your employees. And so by answering phishing attacks, responding to those, email attachments, using unsecured Wi-Fi in public places, social engineering attacks, and also using unsecured network computers or remote access and the bring your own device to work, those are all things that can impact your data. So the first thing we want to do is secure your infrastructure, and start off with an enterprise firewall. These have additional features that a base firewall or a home firewall is not going to have. So commercial grade or enterprise grade firewall will have features such as intrusion detection and other advanced features. These items are going to allow you to detect attacks, or allow the firewall to detect attacks and block them before they can gain access to your system. You wouldn't believe how many small businesses that we see are just using the firewall. They're ISP brings, their internet service provider. So whether it's Spectrum or Windstream, they're just using that instead of a true commercial grade firewall. So this is kind of the boundary between the internet, which is obviously not safe to put computers on, and your intranet in your local area network. So very key part of your defense. Device security with domain and pro versions of operating systems. If you go to the big box stores because you need a new computer, you go to Best Buy or whatever, you're going to get a system that has a home version of the operating systems. So, and it does not have the security that, again, a business or pro versions of the operating systems have. We recommend using server-based security, not workstation peer-to-peer security that many small businesses do. Multi-factor authentication is something that you're probably all aware of. This is when you either get sent a code through email, through your phone, or you have an application that's going to give you a code that changes every 30 seconds or so. This multi-factor authentication will help prevent brute force attacks that pick your password out, or if someone sees that your password is out there on the dark web, then even if they have those compromised credentials, they're not going to be able to get in a system that's protected with MFA. And then use business class email. So there are many businesses that use free email, such as Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, and the free email that you get by your ISP. But there's a significant increase in security by using a business class email such as Microsoft 365. You'll get higher security, you have the option for encryption and information rights management and much more. And so if this is something you're interested in, I'll definitely explain more about that. Finally is for number one, to secure your infrastructure, you need to have a good cybersecurity suite that's on all of your computers. So again, we talked about antivirus. It's still important, but it's not going to be the only thing you have on there. And it's not going to be your cheap or free antiviruses. You're going to use an enterprise level antivirus with EDR, which is endpoint detection and response, and the ATS, which is advanced threat systems. Also DNS protection. DNS protection is when you click on a website and let's say you're going to Google recipes, or one that my mom used to do a lot, and she would Google for a recipe and click on a site, and many times she would go to a site that had already been infiltrated or hacked, and you would get a pop-up that would say that her computer's been, they found illegal information on there and you have to call this number now, that type of thing. The DNS protection will help protect you against clicking on a site that has bad stuff on it that way. So we use a product called Cisco Umbrella, and that handles about 2% of the world's DNS. So as soon as there is a compromised site out there, we implement that, and it's going, when you click on a link to go there, it will tell you that the site has been known to have malware, and it will protect you from going to there. Then do 24/7 monitoring. Here at ILER Networking and Computing, our standard business hours, we do a 40-hour work week, so 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. But the bad actors out there, especially the ones that are overseas, are not following the same time frame. So it's important to have software that is going to monitor your systems 24/7, and they can detect things even if you're not in front of your computer. We do have options for a 24/7, 365 Security Operations Center, which is a man center. When a threat is detected on any of the systems that we manage, within 5 minutes, there's actually a human looking at that and can stop that threat in its tracks. We also have optional zero trust solutions. A zero trust solution is something where you don't trust external or internal people. Basically, everything that runs has been approved, and if you try to run anything outside of those approved applications, it's not going to run, period. And so malware cannot come into the system that way. And so it's a great way, although it does impact the ability that you use your systems through there. And then another tool there is the SIM tool, and this stands for Security Information and Event Management. This is a tool that's critical, and there are many compliance requirements that require organizations today to have a SIM tool. This is going to track and log information, and this is very important to help us find, once a vulnerability happens, how it came through, what systems it's hit, and it helps us to remediate that impact to your organization. All right, number 2 is data protection, and we want to make sure that you're using encryption and backup disaster recovery. So that means encrypt sensitive data at rest and in transit. At rest just means even on your computer. If you're office is broken into and someone takes your computer and takes it out, if your data is not encrypted, then they don't need to know your username and password. They can take out that hard drive, they can connect it to another system, and then pull all your data off. So it's important to make sure that that information is encrypted. If you travel with a laptop, and laptop theft in airports and other places like that is very common. Same type of thing. If that laptop is not encrypted, then the data can be pulled out, and whoever has that data now has the information as well. So making sure that that data on your computers are encrypted is super important. We want to protect that data from unauthorized access, and also then implement backup and disaster recovery plans to ensure that data can be restored in case of attacks and or system failures. So this is any data, your accounting system, your email accounts, your Word documents, your pictures, basically everything that you use inside your business. You want to make sure that you've got a good backup of that. And this good backup means it's going to be having multiple versions. There are times that you could have a corrupt hard drive, nothing with malware or anything like that, but equipment does go bad. And you could have a document that all of a sudden was stored on a bad sector of the hard drive. And when you go to open that document, you can't, because now it's corrupt and that data is gone. So if you're only backing up the latest version, that document that's now corrupt could get backed up in a corrupt state. And if you don't have those multiple versions, then you're not going to be able to get that data back. Also, if you back up data after it's been encrypted with ransomware, same type of thing happens. You have to go to a point where you can pull back that data before the ransomware encrypted your system. Data backups should have multiple versions, as I just talked about, and also be immutable, which means you can't change it. A lot of people will have an external hard drive and they say that that's just a decent backup. It backs it up automatically from your computer, and that is a good backup, but you don't want to make that your only backup, because if a ransomware attack comes in and hits your computer, about 89% of the times that external hard drive is going to be encrypted as well, and that means your backup is now useless. Number 3 on best practices is to make sure you're using strong passwords and multi-factor authentication. So make sure that your passwords are complex and unique. By saying unique, that means do not use them across multiple sites. And I understand there are over 1,000 different sites that I have saved in my password keeper that keep me straight, because I can't manage them all. And you definitely do not want to write them down. So use a password manager that stores passwords, and make sure those passwords are encrypted. So if someone gets access to that database, they can't just read all the passwords, because those are the keys to your kingdom. The product that we recommend is called Keeper. They've got Windows versions, they have Android versions, iOS versions, so you can have it on your computer, you can have it on your phone, and keep those passwords with you at all times. And it does use multi-factor authentication to make sure that no one without access will have access to those important pieces of information. And never keep a written log of your passwords. If I were to go through and ask the people that are attending this, I am sure there are people that have passwords written down somewhere. But this is never a good idea. If those passwords are released, someone breaks into your house and steals things, or your business, and gets a hold of that, boom, they've got access to all of your passwords. So there was an incident in Hawaii several years ago with the emergency information system, and the person who was in charge had a sticky note on his monitor that had his password there. Well, he was doing a social media post, taking a selfie, and it had his computer in the background. Someone was able to read what his password was, logged in, and basically made it sound like Hawaii was going to be under a nuclear attack. So very important to keep your credentials secure. And then also change passwords regularly. When we talked about, I'm going to go back to that first point. When they're complex and unique, the tool like Keeper will create a 20-character or just a random character password. So that is very difficult for someone to break down and guess, or even go through like a brute force attack in order to open up. So that's part of what we talk about using unique. Do not use just dictionary words. Do not use your birthday, anniversary date, things that are important to you. Those are the areas where people can get compromised with the social engineering attacks. And make sure that you have MFA, which is the multi-factor authentication, on all system and accounts to add that extra layer of protection, because if your credentials are compromised, that still prevents them from getting access to the data. Number 4, employee training and awareness. Because employees are that biggest risk to your data, make sure you train your employees. Let them know, what are the right things that they need to be doing. And the statistics show that after an employee goes through training, they do a great job for the first 3 to 6 months. But as months go by since that training elapsed, then they click more and more on different things that they shouldn't be on. So we recommend really quarterly training. It's not very time intensive. And as there are different threats out there, the training software, the training partners that we use update their content so you are then aware of what these current threats are. But you can't just train your employees. It's like sending your kids to school and just giving them the information. What do the teachers have to do to make sure they're retaining it is testing the employees. So our software also has fully automated simulated phishing attacks that can validate if employees are following best practices. And it's not going to beat them up over the head, but when they click on something they shouldn't on these simulated phishing attacks, it's going to just further the education on why they shouldn't have clicked on that. But also then you can do reports and find out which employees are listening to the training and which employees may be your biggest risk. And make sure you then track the results. So managers can see the results of the training and the testing, and that is super critical for protecting the entire organization. It only takes one employee to click on that wrong link or install that malware to impact the whole company. And it's very reasonable. The cost for this training is less than $4 per user per month. And so it's very worthwhile. And last, for the topics we're going to be covering today, is regular software updates and patch management. You may not realize it, but when Windows does your updates or your phone does an update, most of the updates are to handle problems. That means that there's been a bug. Sometimes it's a vulnerability, sometimes it's not. But for those updates that are fixing a vulnerability, those organizations have publicly released on what this patch does and what vulnerability it covers. What that does then is give bad actors a source saying, hey, okay, for the people that have not put this patch in place, this is now a new way that we can access their systems or their devices. So make sure you run your updates, keep all software operating system, firmware, all those types of things updated. Apply critical security patches very soon after they are released. You don't want to wait for these. The critical ones are typically the ones that are going to be tied to a vulnerability. And then apply non-critical security patches within 2 weeks from release date. If I say 2 weeks, there are many releases, and Microsoft actually had one out last week that if you just automatically apply it, it can impact your system. And so within 2 weeks, the vendors that release that patch will know if there was a problem with that release, and they will typically within 2 weeks have a resolution for that. And so these will prevent vulnerabilities from being exploited. One of the things that we do with our assurance service plans is we automatically apply the patches that should be applied. We test them beforehand, and so we make sure that by the time those are pushed out, the critical ones we definitely put in highest priority. The non-critical ones we wait, make sure there's not going to be an issue. And that way, again, your computers, your infrastructure is going to be running so that you can run your business. Okay, so we've gone over the top 5 best practices that you need to take care of to make sure that your data is protected. One of the things that Ohio has done here, and other states have duplicated this, is put into place the Data Protection Act. So Ohio put theirs in place in 2018, and it's just one of a handful of states that are providing this right now, but Iowa does have that as well. And what that does is it provides a safe harbor defense against lawsuits and fines if a company is NIST CSF or CIS compliant. NIST CSF we'll talk about here just briefly. It stands for the National Institute of Science and Technology, and it's the Cybersecurity framework. The CIS also is a framework. And if you show that you are compliant with either of these two frameworks, then even if you do have a data breach, and again, we showed that there's nothing we can do for 100% protection, but they realize you have done your due diligence and the fines or fees are significantly limited on what can happen to your company in that case. So here's information on the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. If you look at the bottom of the slide there, you can go to nist.gov/cyberframework. And this was the latest version 2.0 that was released in Q1 of 2024. And so there's 6 tenets here: govern, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And this breaks down into over 200 different items that they will walk you through. It is intensive, but they will take you through what you need to do to protect your business to implement these. And a lot of them are policies. If you notice, the first 3 are the important steps for prevention, but detect, respond, recover, that is the steps that you take because you do have an event that happens. And so half the things, the tenants out there, are assuming that you are going to have. So continue evaluation for the best of breed security products. We are in the process right now of changing out the core products we've been using for the last probably 3 years because there are better ones now that we can use. So our responsibility is to make sure we are protecting our clients as good as we can. And the software that we use does that. So we provide a security solution that stands guard 24/7, 365. We can have the ability to do a rapid response to suspicious activity, and then threat identification and mitigation. A lot of those 5 best practices we covered talk about making sure you have the tools in place, whether it's software, whether it's your firewall, but we want to make sure that we do not just have an open door for these bad actors and the threats. And then we help with sustained IT support during that crisis. We have the ability to do IT forensics. One of the things that happened recently, there are a lot of large copier companies in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and they have branched out into being an MSP or managed services provider. So they bundle their services and they can provide, quote unquote, a good deal for their copier use and their IT support. There was an incident the end of last year. It was not one of our clients yet, and they were contacted by the Department of Homeland Security because they had a vulnerable or a credible threat coming from inside their network. So they reached out to their IT provider that was their copier company, and they had no idea what to do. So I'm in contact with the president of this company, and he reached out to me and it's like, what are we supposed to do through there? So this was one of the first times I had heard Department of Homeland reaching out to a company here in Lorain County. I said, well, first we want to vet, we want to make sure this is not a bad actor just saying they're Department of Homeland Security and going to come help you get this fixed. And so I did vet them, reached out to Homeland Security, and did qualify the problem that they had. So within 2 hours of being notified of that, we were able to have an incident response team on site. We started doing the analysis, and within, it was probably 4 days, we had determined everywhere that that threat came from, what systems were impacted by that. We got it cleaned up and everything back up and running. And so it was a 4-day process. Now, that process also cost about $30,000 because we were running 24/7, and it's just a very expensive process for the forensics. So it goes back to that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But we have the technology, the skill set that a lot of these other smaller and or cheaper companies do not have. And also, there's reduced risk of non-compliance fines. More and more industries are requiring compliance to make sure that you're doing these best practices to secure yourself and your network. We also offer VCIO, VCSO services. Sometimes we call that VCSO, and that's the Virtual Chief Information Security Officer. Smaller businesses cannot afford the mid-6-figure salary that one of these roles have. So we provide strategic, technical compliance and informational security insight and work with your company leadership at a fraction of the cost that a full-time CIO and CSO roles do. And we're also a trusted advisor for a third-party IT and managed services provider. So if you are using that third party, hiring someone like us to come in, make sure the policies are in place, and just doing a third-party view to make sure that you are secure as that company says you are is invaluable. We have detected more often than not when we do the security assessment that the current IT provider has left vulnerabilities open, and you don't know about those unless you're doing these assessments. Ongoing employee training. Make sure that you train your employees because that is the biggest threat to your business. So we do baseline testing to assess how phish-prone percentage your users are through a free simulated phishing attack. Then we provide the training is the world's largest library of security awareness training content, automated training campaigns with scheduled reminder emails, and then we phish your employees. So we have best-in-class, fully automated simulated phishing attacks with thousands of different templates with unlimited usage. that will test the employees, make sure they're not clicking on the things that they're supposed to. The reports we give you, then you will see the results. Enterprise strength reporting showing stats and graphs for the training and phishing. So again, if you have a user that's not going through those trainings, that's a problem. Finally, we have compliance as a service. And compliance as a service, we help organizations that want to make sure that they are following the industry regulations. For HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, this is important for any medical companies that are out there. FTC safeguards, this is a new rule that went into place last year, specifically for, well, let me back up there. FTC safeguards has been in place for the last 20-some years. They put in a new amendment to that, that any company that deals with finances, so it's not just banks, but auto dealerships that deal with dealer loans, colleges and universities that deal with student loans, financial advisors, CPAs, accountants, any organization like this has to comply with these FTC safeguards, and the fines are significant. If you willingly are nonchalant about these and skipping the safeguards, and you know you're required to do that, there's actually jail time that could happen for there. NIST CSF, we just talked about that, the cybersecurity framework, or the CSS controls if you prefer those. PCI DSS, that's the banking, especially if you're running credit cards. There are many more different compliances there, but we are certified as a provider for compliance as a service, so we can help you and come alongside you and make sure that you are fully compliant and help you. If you're not compliant, we will get you compliant and then help you maintain that compliance. All right, question and answers. So right now, if you have any questions, you put that in the chat there where it actually says questions, and I'm going to pull up our list to see what questions we may have. So AJ said hi. Hi, AJ. So are there any other questions that we can answer for you? We try to be pretty thorough on this and cover the top questions, but typically users do have some questions. All right, Tammy. So how does one get to the dark web? The dark web's not necessarily any different place you have to go to. It's just on the internet. It's the type of websites that you go to. And so there are just websites that tailor towards these bad actors. When Columbus, the city of Columbus was hit and they released that 3 terabytes of data, those were just on websites out there. A lot of these websites, we would call them not safe for work to do that. If you have questions about what your information is and can't find that, we do part of our assessment that I'm going to be offering here in just a little bit is a free dark web report for you. So you can request a free assessment and we will show you what information we can find on the dark web for you and your company. So Tish, do we do residential cybersecurity? Yes, we do. Basically, our residential is pretty much the same thing that we do for our businesses. The cybersecurity suite of tools that we use is the same thing that we'd recommend for residential. It is commercial grade, but that's the only way that it can be protected. And it gives us the ability, if they have questions, we can talk to them and help support them as well from an IT standpoint. So Jen said from an IT background, oh, it said it sounded great. We'll be in touch. Well, I appreciate that, Jen. Thank you. And Tish said, my father clicks on everything. I understand that. There was a day that I had to remote in to my mom's computer 8 times for her clicking on the same type of thing where, you know, the alarms are going off and said that the computer's been infected with malware. And I had to go through and close out because, again, they're pretty sophisticated. They took over the whole screen, and my mom had no way. You couldn't like click on the X on the top right. It was just full screen mode, and you know, making a lot of sound. And so she's on the phone calling me. I can hear the alarms going off in the background. Well, it's 11:43, so this is kind of what my goal was for getting through. let's go to our promotions, and then we'll go to our, what everyone's waiting for, I'm sure, is the giveaway. And so let me get back to the presentation here. All right, so this is our highest level of savings. For you taking your time listening to this information, we want to provide a special offer for you as a method of thanks. And so here, we're offering a free network evaluation. So this is an excellent way to test the current state of your environment, provided by your current IT team, whether you have an IT team or whether it's the person who knows the most about computers through there. In order to get this free network evaluation, the request, though, must come from a registered email address of the attendee and be for that attendee's organization. So we had you register through that, but you can either go to this URL, which is ILER.com/assessment, or you can scan the QR code. It just has a short form to fill out. We'll get in touch with you on the best way to schedule that assessment. And then if you decide that you want to bump up the level of your current cybersecurity protection, if you want to use one of our assurance service plans, we've got 4 of them, talk to us. And if you sign up this week for one of them, we will give you 1 free month of that. So there are some restrictions that apply, but we can talk to you about that as well. So now we have the giveaways. So again, the giveaway we're doing today is for 4 club seats to the Cavs. This is in row 5 of the club section, so it's pretty close back. And I'm going to do a random drawing right now from those that are in attendance. And so we look through here at the participants, and the winner is, drum roll, it is Tish Keegan. So Tish, congratulations. You've got 4 club seats to the Cavs. We should have your contact information, but if you reach out to us through email, you can reach us at info@iler.com. That's info@iler.com. Or you can reach out to me, kent@iler.com. I'm going to put my contact information up here right now as well. So I'm sure you won't have just all the questions that came to your mind during this presentation today. So if you have any questions or need help with your cybersecurity or other IT needs, please reach out to us. So info@iler.com, our website's there. There's a contact us form, depending on where you're located. Our headquarters here in Ohio, but there's our contact information for Iowa and South Carolina. And we also, I thought I had a page here for the Buckeye Business Builders. Unfortunately, I did not save that change, I guess. So the Buckeye Business Builders is the networking group that this is provided through, and we meet the 2nd and the 4th Tuesday of every month here in Sheffield Village. The best way to find out information about that is to go to the website, and that is BBB, so it's for Buckeye Business Builders, not Better Business Bureau, and then ng.org. So bbbng.org. They'll have all of our upcoming events. You'll see what next month's webinar is if you'd like to join that. And I really appreciate you joining and taking the time out there. Hopefully this has been educational, and our goal is to make sure that you're protected and don't have any of these incidents we talk about. So you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.